Hello, everyone. This is Joe Brewer here, and I'm really excited to share with you what I see as the ingestion and synthesis of many beautiful ideas I've heard from members of the Earth Regenerators community that suggests how we can reorient the different pieces of what has been emerging in the last few months into a new coherent sort of evolutionary leap forward to create a thriving ecosystem of support for Earth regenerators all over the world. The focus of Earth regenerators, as we know, has always been about how to create social supports. And what I want to emphasize today is we want to cultivate living social supports, human beings who live, breathe, help each other, co-create as the scaffolding for our lives, as more and more of us learn how to live regeneratively. And what I want to really describe in this presentation is how we might bring together the various pieces that have established themselves throughout the last year to create a living tapestry of support that grows and deepens and becomes enriching the more that we do it and the more of us who do it. Now, we can think about Earth regenerators as having a pattern of learning journeys. So they're the actual learning journeys that continually bring people in and move them into deeper relationships. But really, there are also the other kinds of activities like book club and campfire talks and weekly check-ins where people are learning together in various ways. And what I want to emphasize for now is that the primary way that people join the Earth Regenerators community and begin to form relationships is through our learning journeys. So people arrive into the space and don't have very many relationships. They don't know very much yet about who we are and how we work, but then they go through a learning journey or they join some of our activities and they build stronger relationships. And the question becomes, where do they go from there? How can they begin to integrate what they've been learning and integrate with the relationships they've been forming into their lives? And so the question becomes, how do they move through the learning journeys and then into what comes next? And while there are many activities in Earth Regenerators, I'm going to emphasize three key focus areas that are really structurally clear and have a lot of functional aspects that enable them to work together. And so the question becomes, as people enter Earth Regenerators, maybe they go through an 8-week learning journey and form relationships. They realize they want to make changes in their lives. And after this 8-week kind of incubation period, or if they've come in some other way, they're starting to get involved. And the question is, how could the Earth Regenerators fund things like the bioregional catalysts that are really focusing on deep skills, and the regenerative project incubator that is now very consistently creating social supports to develop people and their projects? How do those who enter into this space find coherence and navigate effectively? And one way that we might name this is that we want to create a living ecology of regenerative finance, meaning that there is a robust living circulation of value that is created, stored, and moved around throughout the ecosystem of human relationships. And there's something about the relationship between the ER fund, what Bioregional Catalysts is doing now, and the project incubator that are a bit fragmented at the moment. And as they continue to complexify and develop, they're becoming more incoherent with each other, and there's a need for them to change. And so the question becomes, how do we evolve them together symbiotically and synergistically to create this living tapestry of regenerative support for all of the members of our community, including ourselves? One way we can start to think about this is how the Earth Regenerators Fund was created. Back in October, I just put out the call and said, who wants to help make it? And a bunch of people showed up. And then between November and December, we did some crowdfunding. We formed a fundraising team and a governance team who started brainstorming ideas and models of distributed governance, ethics for sharing, resources within a community, how to create and manage a commons effectively. And there was a lot of great discussion and really good learning. But then in January, this group of people began to practice for real because I came to them and said, I'm forming a lot of relationships with different people, and it's possible that a larger amount of money may come to us soon. And I'd really like all of you to go from talking about this to practicing. And I put out a challenge. Please take $5,000 of the crowdfunding money that's been raised so far and set up a process to receive proposals within the community and try to give away all $5,000 to members of Earth Regenerators by the end of January. And then a huge amount of intense learning occurred within the Earth Regenerators Fund work group. And they successfully gave away the $5,000 to a variety of projects, and many members of our community are getting to work right now. But in the meantime, the bioregional catalysts was growing in complexity, depth, and focus, forming pods of focused activities in smaller groups, starting to form a guild of deeper training, trying to map out what kinds of supports they would need to be able to support themselves and each other to work at this territorial scale. And in parallel with this, the Regenerative Project Incubator became more popular. An increasing number of people kept joining, and they came to realize that their model was working, but they actually need to change it now because there's a backlog of people waiting for advisory circles, and there are more people with projects than there are available opportunities to support them. And they're in this pattern where they're starting to do a prosocial mapping process with the ACT matrix to figure out how to reinvent and re-envision themselves. And the ER Fund, that team is doing the same thing. And Bioregional Catalysts is doing a lot of, pro-social work and figuring out how to improve and evolve themselves. And so the question becomes, how can these three somewhat overlapping and relatively isolated sets of activities become integrated into a coherent ecosystem? Well, one thing that we learned from the group in the ER Fund when they were practicing giving $5,000 away was that money distorts our weaving process. And also, many people who have project ideas don't actually know what they really need. So when they need to figure out how much money to ask for, one of the things that was learned is that they actually don't usually need as much money as they think. Sometimes they need more. And the idea that we say, we have $5,000 to give away, would anyone like to apply? Word got out, and people who are not members of Earth Regenerators showed up just trying to get to the money. And then members of Earth Regenerators became a little bit stressed and concerned that they may ask for money when their fellow members are doing volunteer work without asking for money. And it just created a space where we didn't quite know how to navigate the ethics or how to do it well. And so what we realized was we actually, we actually need to remove money from this process and bring it in at a later stage. And this caused us to see that we need a pro-social process to help develop projects until they're ready. And an idea that came forth was this: what if the Earth Regenerators Fund never says how much money it has and never offers money, and no one ever applies for money? But instead, people who have ideas for projects or things that they want to do with their lives are invited to go to the Project Incubator, which already has a variety of social supports to help people clarify their ideas, learn new things they need to learn, gather people to their team, and various things that make their projects more likely to succeed. So the question becomes, what if people go into the Project Incubator and those who are managing the incubator are observing their level of readiness to receive support from the Earth Regenerators Fund when they may not even know that the resources exist? What this does is it creates an entirely human social support system where human beings, people, Earth Regenerators members, are helping each other and saying things like, I can help you do a financial assessment of how much money you'd need to do this project. Or maybe to say, I can help you connect with mentors and guides who have already done similar work who might join your project. So a human support system that helps people refine their projects and align their lives with the work they want to do. Then what this would mean is that before they arrive at the Earth Regenerators Fund, all of their needs have been clarified. They've built trust, transparency, and alignment with people who are going to help them succeed. And all they need is a process of mobilization to gather the resources and supports to continue from there. And if the Earth Regenerators Fund is just a place that mobilizes those supports after they've been clarified, then when someone is in the incubator and those who are managing the incubator see that they're ready, they just bring their project forth to the Earth Regenerators Fund and activate this process of mobilization. It's a way of saying, you are now ready to manifest your dream. You have the clarity, you have the internal resolve and psychological development, you have the support and resources you need, but you only need these other pieces. The ER Fund can help you. And then they're brought to the fund and they don't even apply. As one or two of our members of the ER Fund said, we would love for projects to arrive and just say, it's already been vetted and it's ready. How much money do you need and what is your bank account? So imagine the ER Fund is the recipient of the prosocial process of the Regenerative Project Incubator. Well, what this means is the Regenerative Project Incubator is actually incorrectly named because it's actually the Regenerative People Incubator. We're actually cultivating human beings to be able to live out regenerative activities, which they sometimes call their projects. But here's the thing. What this means is that the Earth Regenerators Fund never supports projects, it only supports people, which means it only gives out Earth Regenerators fellowships at the level and of the kinds of support that are needed for the project to continue. Now, if we put this into the context of a living system, we can think of it like this. Just like a living organism, we gather what we need in real time from our environments. And here we've created a rich social tapestry of things that can meet the needs of those who are developing in this process. Yes, there will be financial support, but also there's knowledge sharing, people who join the teams of the projects, people giving emotional support, those who become mentors and guides. And I mentioned here airline tickets as an example where someone might think that they need money because they need to travel. But if someone else in Earth Regenerators has frequent flyer miles, maybe instead of paying for an airline ticket, they gift them one with their frequent flyer miles. What I'm pointing out here is that our community has an abundance of diverse, valuable supports, and they gather together through the pro-social relationships of the people going through the project incubator, so that when they arrive for the mobilization of these capacities, they are freely given in the spirit of the gift economy among those who are part of the ER Fund. So what this means is that we have a way of creating a giving economy that gifts to Earth Regenerators Fellows exactly what they need to continue their work. Now, one way to think about this giving circle might be that there are a small number or a growing number of people who have larger amounts of money to give. Or perhaps we have institutional partners, like right now we're talking with the Regen Foundation of the Regen Network. So imagine that the Regen Network or the Regen Foundation gave us $1 million. Or imagine that we had a couple of people in our community who would donate $250,000 each, or some larger amount of money, to support these Earth Regenerators Fellows. The key thing is we would not need to tell how much money is held in this giving circle. It might simply be that we have a minimum amount that's already been approved. So for example, maybe there's $1 million in the giving circle, but we're told there's at least 100,000. What that means is by the time the ER Fund has verified that someone needs some money and it's less than $100,000, all they do is go to the giving circle and say, who in this circle would like to support this person in their project? Would you like to remain anonymous, or would you like them to know? Would you like to join their project and help them with it and make it a part of your life? And then those in the giving circle get to decide how they share this information and what they keep private. And this actually enables us to decolonize the money and keep money from distorting the process. Simply, what happens is a person is receiving support to clarify how they want to live regeneratively, and they arrive at a place where their needs are clear and they have strong social supports and they know what they're trying to do. And then they arrive in a place where we merely say, what do you need? And then that is given in support from the giving circle. Now imagine these Earth Regenerators Fellows, and this gets to where the bioregional catalyst comes in, is that the bioregional catalyst is a place where people are trying to practice very advanced forms of territorial planning and design, integrated landscape management, social weaving across people and communities. And so the bioregional catalysts is becoming a guild of practitioners, which meaning there is a continually evolving community of practice, which becomes populated by more and more Earth Regenerators fellows who have gone through this other incubation and support process. And so we have a focused area of Earth Regenerators for sharing best practices and spreading the learning across those that are doing their work. So the core idea looks like this. Earth Regenerators has a continual flow of learning in many forms, the learning journey being one of the most visible, but it's happening all over the place. And this flow of learning causes people to realize they are ready to make changes in their lives, and those who would like to become Earth Regenerators fellows begin their focused learning journey by going into the project incubator, developing their ideas, receiving support from advisory circles, gathering mentors and advice, learning how to map out what they need with support of other Earth Regenerators. And then when they're ready, they arrive at the Earth Regenerators Fund, which is a set of people who can just allocate to them what they need. And then after they've received what they need, they continue on in their journeys and eventually cluster around the bioregional catalysts work, where Earth Regenerators fellows can convene with each other and share their best practices, share their learning, create case studies, and all kinds of valuable things. And in the background of this is a giving circle, a set of Earth Regenerators members who donate money, who offer their expertise to be mentors for those who are in the process, who provide whatever kind of support is needed that is recognized by the project incubator and needs to be allocated through the Earth Regenerators Fund. Now, if we created a model that works like this, then we will have birthed a living ecology of regenerative finance with Earth Regenerators members all over the planet. And so my purpose in giving this presentation is I want to invite all of you who are working in these three focus areas, and really anyone who's doing leadership work across Earth Regenerators right now, to imagine how we could create the social supports where money is never a concern for someone's regenerative project, because we have created a large and diverse enough commons that either we definancialize the needs of that person, meaning here's your airline ticket, you don't need money, or whatever other form of giving gifts that take away the need for money. But also we pool money by having special members of the community who have larger amounts to give that enter a giving circle. And we do crowdfunding of the membership in general, which includes the donations that are raised during the learning journeys that can then flow into and support this process. Now, what I would love to see is some version of this emerge throughout the next 6 months and be prototyped and tested in supporting transformations in the lives of Earth Regenerators members throughout the rest of the year. So, what do you say? Let's do this, shall we? I really would love to hear your thoughts and reactions to this, to see you embodying and implementing this, and of course to evolve and improve it from here. Let's do this. Onward, fellow humans.